Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's masterclass, all about influencing what you can and letting go of the rest. I'm delighted to be here today. And thank you also for a lot of you. I know this is your lunchtime. Okay. So thank you for spending your lunch with me also. Okay. Uh, just going to give you guys a brief introduction to myself. My name is Andy Keneally. I work with project managers to help them transition from doing to leading so that they can drive more successful project outcomes. I have 14 years of experience delivering predominantly change and transformation programs. I have dabbled a bit in technology and data and analytics also. It's usually been in banking, professional services, and technology sectors. I'm PMP certified. I'm a design thinking expert. I'm a workshop facilitator. I'm a leadership coach. As you can see, I wear lots of hats. But the key thing here for me is that I love getting stuck into meaty, complex problems. I've always enjoyed that. And with every bit of complexity in a project, I've realized that sometimes it isn't actually the technical project management skills that we all have is what helps us drive those successful project outcomes. It is more about our soft skills, our power skills, our people skills that help us move that project forward. So today, we're going to talk about one of those areas, which is all about influence and control, and how increasing influence in your role in project management can help you reach those project outcomes. I'd love to get to know you too, so please let me know in the chat where are you dialing in from, what is your role in project management. I will get back to all of you in the comments after the webinar. Also, if you've any questions throughout our session today, please pop them into the chat. I'll get to as many as I can during our session today. If not, I'll be able to comment to you guys on the feed after the session has ended. All right, so let's move on. Now, I want to talk about something that might make you a little bit uncomfortable, or it might be shocking, or it's not a surprise. I'm not sure. You let me know, right? Last year, LinkedIn surveyed professionals across all industries about workplace stress, and guess what? Project managers, we came up on top. We won the gold medal. What did we win it for? The highest rate of burnout in any profession. It's higher than doctors, it's higher than teachers, it's even higher than emergency responders. Now, are you surprised at that? Let me know in the comments. But for me, when I looked through all those comments on that article in LinkedIn, there was a lot of project managers saying, I'm not surprised. I also see a lot of that on Reddit as well when you go through the project management Reddit as well. But this is concerning. We're talking about really experienced, capable project managers, the people that we rely on to transform organizations and get us through all of this complexity. But it's actually when you look at what we're expected to do, it's actually no wonder we are winning the gold medal for burnout. I looked at a senior project management job description just before I came onto this call. And of course, in that job description, it has the usual things you would expect, like governance processes, having, knowledge and methodologies and things like that. But then it went into other information, which were lower down on the bullet points of this job description, but were equally as important, if not probably the most important thing for a project manager to know when applying for this job, right? They needed to perform at a high standard in changing environments, constantly pursue performance improvement, challenge the status quo. Now, already, that sounds like a lot for one person to do in one job. But there's also the things that are not written on that job description that we just take it as it's part of the job, such as being comfortable with ambiguity, negotiating, influencing, facilitating discussion, trying to win over people to change and to build relationships with stakeholders. Now, these are all these people skills, these soft skills that no one really teaches you when you look at the certifications that we have in project management. Now, I'm not dissing them, they're fantastic, right? As I said, I'm PMP certified. It's one of the best things I've done. But it's as we get more and more complexity in our projects, we need to lean more on these soft skills. And this is why I think lots of us are starting to burn out. So when I looked at this statistic, I really asked myself, what can I do to try and stop this happening? I don't want you or any other project manager to end up getting that gold medal. It's the gold medal that we don't want. And as I thought about it, I said, hey, there might be something here in the behaviors that we have as project managers, and that can help us be more impactful in our work. So today we're going to look at that balance between influence and control so that we can get rid of the gold medal. So let me bring this to life for you in a scenario. I want you to meet Alex. Alex is a really experienced project manager leading a digital transformation project. And Alex needs to get senior stakeholder buy-in for this changing to the new system. The new system will have complications that will make people work differently. Now, Alex has called a meeting with the department heads, and he expects that one or two of them are going to push back. And because of their seniority, he says, hey, I'm just going to focus on the facts. And, we're going to say, these are the cost savings. This is what is going to make your life easier in terms of the process and things like that. Now, he goes into the room, he presents all his facts and figures, and the room erupts. Everyone is on the same page. They are totally resisting this change. Our processes are working fine. My team can't handle any more change. We've tried all of this before and it's all completely failed. Now, all this resistance keeps getting stronger and stronger. And Alex is just sitting there kind of thinking, oh, what's happened? How am I going to fix this mess? They've presented what they think is all the right information. They've presented it clearly, but somehow they've rounded up lots of enemies instead of allies. It was a rational discussion about facts and figures, but people are getting really defensive and emotional about this. So Alex reacts by quieting down, staying silent, feeling completely defeated, and just letting people throw rocks at them. Now, obviously, the meeting ends quite badly. Alex is feeling quite frustrated, knowing that they can't deliver this project without having that senior stakeholder support. We all know having that tone from the top is really important when you're putting in a change in a project. But this resistance is now even stronger, and Alex is figuring out, what am I going to do to try and fix this? And right now, they've no ideas. They also feel a little bit out of their depth all of a sudden. Before, years ago, they would have walked into this meeting and it all would have been, quite straightforward. They would have overcome some of these challenges. But now they're wondering, oh, I've made such a mess of this. What are these senior people actually thinking about me? It's completely knocked their confidence. And why has this situation not worked well? Maybe they're not able to do this role anymore. Now, what I've just described there is Alex's challenge, and we will be revisiting Alex's challenge throughout today's session. Now, I've no doubt also that you've been in situations like this. Maybe you're facing one right now in your role, or you've been through one in the past. Believe me, I've been through a lot. I could probably write a best-selling diary of all those challenges that I've been through. But right now, I want to take a pause here. I want you to grab a pen and paper and think about a challenge that is top of mind for you right now. Write that down. It doesn't need to be the same as Alex's. It can be completely different. Maybe you're struggling with a difficult stakeholder who is keeps adding new scope or changing requirements. Maybe you feel like that you're being micromanaged by your boss or your stakeholder. Maybe managing your team is difficult because, they're feeling very stressed or burnt out at the moment. Maybe there's someone resisting change. Maybe you're just feeling unconfident yourself in whatever that challenge is. Whatever the challenge is, it needs to be something that you feel like that it's draining you or frustrating you, giving you a pain in your head, keeping you awake at night because you're worried about it and you can't quite figure out how you're going to overcome that challenge. Now, once you've written down your challenge, ask yourself the two questions underneath. And again, write this down on your piece of paper. First, how would you rate the impact that you're having at the moment with this challenge? Rate it between 1 to 10. So 1 having no impact at all, 10 having full impact. Okay, so just pick a number. And then second, what is stopping you from being more impactful? All right, I'm going to move on now, just in the interest of time, but let me know what comes up for you here. You can let me know in the chat. Now, we'll revisit your challenge again in a moment, but first, I want to introduce you to this simple framework that could help you raise that number that you have for impact a step or two. Okay, and it's a really simple framework, and it is called the Circles of Influence. It really helps you understand where your impact and your power really lives. Now, let me step through the circles for you. Going to start with the outermost circle there, the dark gray one, the circle of acceptance. As you can see here, this is the biggest circle. These are the things that we are concerned about, but we have very little control over them. Actually, we've no control at all, come to think of it. But there's still things that make us worried or anxious or stressed, or just frustrated and annoyed sometimes because it's just the way it is. And we can't really do anything about it. But the thing about the thing about the items that will be in this circle, they're the things that suck the energy out of you. They will drain your energy if you spend time trying to fight them. So, for example, just how politics works in your organization, the company culture of your organization, governance processes that you feel like are being done to you, but it's just the way it has to be done because those are the rules in your organization. Those sorts of things, right? It's just the way it is. You just got to accept them. But I get it. They drive you mad sometimes. All right. Now, excuse me. Let's look at the innermost circle. It's the yellow circle, the circle of influence. And you can see here, it is the smallest circle. And these are the things that we have direct control over. The only thing, though, that you have direct control over in your whole life is you, yourself, your actions, your decisions, your behaviors, your words. You can't control your boss, your colleagues, your clients, your teammates, any family member, nothing like that, right? You can only control what you can do, right? So, some examples here are how you prepare for meetings like Alex, your working environment, your communication, those sorts of things. They're in direct control for you. And now let's look at that middle circle, It's a circle of influence. And this is where you can have a lot of impact, but you don't have full control over it. This is sometimes called the circle of action. This is why it is quite literally a grey zone. It includes all the areas where you could have an impact on the outcomes, but you can't actually control what is the final outcome that will come from your action. But the thing is, influence is where a lot of power lives. The more time you spend on influence, the bigger the circle gets. But you need to step out of your comfort zone. You need to be proactive in building that influence. If you don't do that, you're going to be reactive to all of these worries. You're going to firefight as all these challenges come up in your projects. And what happens? Your influence shrinks. We want this to grow. Now, it's very wise to spend most of your energy in that circle. But remember, you have to bear in mind that you can control the efforts that you put into this circle, but not necessarily the outcomes that happen. So it is a lot of work, but you might get a better outcome out of it instead of putting them into the accept circle. Now, I have used this tool a number of times when I am in those situations where I feel like, something is annoying me or puzzling me, and I just need to try and get all my thoughts down on paper. My usual go-to reaction when I'm in a challenging situation, and I'm sure lots of you are the same as me because we're project managers, is you think about what is the action plan? What are the next actions I need to take to try and keep moving this forward? But we just need to stop and step back. Using a tool like this will help you figure out what are the most impactful things that you can do for these challenging situations. And it helps you prioritize your energy and your focus onto the areas where you can truly make a difference, instead of wasting your time and energy on situations that you might actually lose to begin with anyway. It will also help you build your confidence in those areas you feel like that you know what you're doing. Of course, what happens after putting these circles together is your action plan. It's a bit more thought out, a bit more clear, but looking at these circles of influence, it's a 10-minute exercise. It doesn't take long. All right, so let's revisit Alex again and Alex's situation. As we know, Alex, felt a bit powerless in their situation in that stakeholder meeting with the department heads. So you might think at the beginning, Alex is to accept people's resistance to change, the way the politics works in this organization, their priorities and concerns, and also the fact that they're quite skeptical about this because of that failed change initiative that happened a few years earlier that was mentioned by a stakeholder. What they felt like they could control was their preparation, the presentation that they give, the data that they presented, and what they say in that meeting. And for their influence, well, they tried to explain what were the benefits. It wasn't quite the benefits that were impacting those individuals or those departments. It was the benefits for the entire organization. And they felt that the influence that they had was to push against this resistance all the time, to try and push it through. But we can all see that something like that failed and they ended up just staying silent and feeling blindsided about the entire situation. Now you can see here that a lot of things are in that accept circle. That's not a good area to be in. That's actually a bit of a trap. We want to try and put things out of the accept circle and figure out what are the things that we can influence and control to try and overcome some of these challenges. Now let's look at what would happen if Alex really put some thought into what they influence. And you can see that their influence has really grown as a result of looking at these circles. So, what could they have done differently before the meeting? They could have had individual conversations with each stakeholder. That would allow him to understand what are their concerns before going into a big group. It would also allow him to build relationships. You might have relationships with some of those stakeholders already, but there might be others that you need to build from scratch. It also gives you an idea of what is really driving that resistance. Why is there fear of change? What are the workload concerns? What did we learn from the past bad experiences and what we can do differently this time? Making it a bit more of a collaborative approach. Now, during the meeting, how the change gets framed, not as something that's being done to them, but as something that addresses their pain points. Involving the stakeholders in the design of the solution rather than presenting what feels like you've got to do this is the plan, tough luck. That's why they got a lot of resistance. We're addressing their pain points, their emotional concerns, instead of the fairly logical ones. And then after the meeting, Alex could have follow-up conversations with individuals. They could set specific objectives or goals or pieces of work that they need to work together on so that it becomes a bit more of a gradual buy-in rather than expecting an immediate agreement. Now, see the difference here. We have thought of lots of different actions that we can do to try and get the outcome of support from these stakeholders. There's multiple strategies here that would be much better than just presenting data that you hope will convince people that they have to change. Now, we know that we can't, control people's initial reaction to change, but you can influence how well they understand the benefits for them. You can't control politics in a department or the hierarchy or anything like that, but you can still build relationships and really listen and understand their concerns. You can't control the past, right? It's happened, but you can influence how this change is positioned as something different and what's in it for them. Now, again, as I said, this is only a small piece of work, right? Just taking out your circles of influence can take about 10 minutes before you actually dive into an action plan. So let's do a quick interactive exercise. Again, think about your challenge. I want you to get your pen and paper again and think about your own personal circles of influence so that you can let go of those things that you have to accept and you can't control, and you can build more impact in more areas. So let's start with that outer circle. Do this for the situation that you are most worried about today. Again, think about that challenge you said earlier, or you might decide that there's another thing that's worrying you more. We're starting with that outer circle, the dark gray one, the one about acceptance, where you have no control. You have to accept what is happening. Here, list things that you just need to accept that are out of your control. It's really simple. Now, what actions can you take to let go of those things in your accept circle? What strategies are you going to have to just accept them and let go of your frustration? What are the coping mechanisms that you can develop? What are the things you're going to do to help you notice that you're spending a lot of time in this circle? Now, notice those things that you have in your accept circle. Say goodbye to them. Let them go. Practice. When they reappear in your mind that you're getting frustrated by something or you feel like your energy is being spent on those things in your accept circle, say goodbye to them. They're not welcome in your head. Okay? It's just the way it is. You're not going to be able to change what is happening in that accept circle. Okay. Now, let's see what we can do to improve your situation. For the innermost circle, the circle of control, list the things that you have direct control over for your situation. Are you doing enough for the things in your control circle? For example, if you're thinking of Alex and you're going into this meeting, are you doing enough preparation for that meeting? You have control over that. Are you gathering enough information before going into that meeting? You have control over that. What else can you do to improve your situation, uh, and your challenge? So just give you guys a minute to do that. Okay, and now let's focus on the middle circle, the circle of influence. Remember, this is where you have a lot more power. We want this to expand. It is your circle of action. List the things that you have the ability to influence in the hope of getting better outcomes. Remember, you don't have control, but you don't necessarily have to accept those things either. What are the actions you can take to help influence your situation to get better outcomes? Ask yourself, what can I do to change this situation for the better? And how can you address areas to gain a greater sense of control for your challenge? Now, take a step back and look at your three circles again. Is there anything else that can be added? For your accept circle, do you actually need to accept all of these, or is there something small within that accept that you might be able to actually influence? Do you have more control than what you thought you had? Add something there. Keep building. All right. So I know that we've covered quite a bit today. I've shown you how Alex can accept things and actually turn things to influence, and you've been able to map your own challenge and discover where you might have more power or more influence than you thought. Remember, we want you to have more impact in your challenge. But I know that sometimes there, after doing some of these exercises, there might be a little voice in your head, the little inner critic, kind of saying, right, Andy, this all makes sense in paper. I've got all my circles, but if I take this action, I might make a complete mess of it. It's really not something I can do. It's just the way things are. what if I'm overstepping? What if I just get more resistance? Or, I've tried this stuff before and it just doesn't work. And that's actually what's stressing me out. Well, I'm happy to help you throughout all of that. Your next step, if you want a little bit more help, is that I am offering a limited number of 30-minute slots to help you understand more about your challenge and figure out what more that you can do to help you overcome that challenge. So if you scan the QR code that you see on the slide there, it'll bring you to my diary. It'll set up 30 minutes with you, and we can step through from there. All right. So I will keep an eye on the comments in the stream, and I will reach out to anyone that has left a comment or has any questions or anything like that. But again, I just want to thank everyone for joining this LinkedIn Live. Again, I know it's been lunchtime for a lot of you, so I have stepped through this as quickly as I can to try and give you back some of your lunch and try and grab something. But if there's anything else I can do to help, let me know. Again, you can scan the QR code if you like. I will be running more LinkedIn Lives in the future. If there's something that you think would be good to cover as a challenge that you have in your project management role, please reach out. Let me know. You have me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to have a chat to step through that. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Take care.